What if the silence you're living through isn't rejection, but preparation? What if God's quietness isn't absence, but the sacred pause before a divine restoration? So often, when love fades or breaks, the heart rushes to fill the silence with questions, with noise, with desperate attempts to understand what went wrong. Yet in heaven's language, silence is not the end. It is the moment before revelation. And in that stillness, Archangel Gabriel begins to speak. He is the messenger of divine clarity, the same archangel who announced new beginnings to Mary and Zechariah when all seemed uncertain. His voice does not come in thunder, but in truth, and tonight his message is clear. God is restoring your love life. The distance, the confusion, the unanswered prayers, all of them have meaning. The silence that has surrounded you was not punishment. It was the space where heaven began its hidden work of renewal. Every love story touched by God passes through a period of silence. It is the moment when the soul is refined, when pride is softened, and when what was once built in human effort is made ready for divine grace. Archangel Gabriel stands between heaven and earth as the voice that breaks this silence, carrying God's message to those who wait with wounded hearts. Do not fear. The plan has not failed. The promise is still alive. As you open your heart in this prayer, allow Gabriel's light to reach the places where confusion has grown. The silence you feared is about to reveal the truth you have prayed for. What you thought was over may not be ending. It may be beginning again, this time under God's perfect design. The season of silence. There comes a time in every love story when God allows silence to fall. It feels like distance, like abandonment, like the absence of answers. But in truth, this silence is not a void. It is a sacred season. It is the space where heaven rearranges what the human heart could not fix. When everything seems still, God is working in secret. He speaks not through noise or argument, but through stillness, shaping hearts, realigning paths, and healing what pride and pain once distorted. Archangel Gabriel teaches that silence in relationships is one of the most misunderstood gifts of God. It is not rejection, nor punishment. It is mercy in disguise. In the same way that the angel appeared to Zechariah in the temple when his long prayers for a child had gone unanswered, heaven also appears in your silence, announcing that divine timing is about to unfold. Zechariah's voice was taken for a time so that God's promise could mature in faith. Likewise, your silence may be the preparation for words of restoration yet to come. This season, painful as it may feel, is the spiritual ground where patience takes root. It is the soil where discernment grows, where impulsive emotions give way to clarity. When God withholds communication, He is not withholding love, He is preserving it. Silence is the furnace where true affection is purified of ego, dependence, and fear. Archangel Gabriel invites you to stop fighting the silence and to listen within it. If you lean into it, you will begin to hear not the echoes of absence, but the rhythm of preparation. The heart that learns to rest in God's quiet is the heart that will soon recognize His voice when He speaks again. The silence that once felt unbearable will soon reveal itself as the place where your love story began to heal. When heaven stops you from chasing. There are seasons in life when love becomes a pursuit that exhausts the heart. You pray for connection, you fight for understanding, you try to mend what has fallen apart. And still, silence answers you. It feels unjust that something once so alive can suddenly become distant. You wonder what changed, why words no longer reach, why affection no longer returns. Yet beneath this ache, there may be something sacred unfolding, a divine restraint guided by the hand of heaven itself. What if this silence is not rejection but protection? What if God, through Archangel Gabriel, is gently stopping you from chasing what could wound your soul? When heaven intervenes, it rarely does so with loud commands. Instead, God speaks through closed doors, unanswered messages, and the unexplainable stillness that surrounds certain relationships. The same hand that opens hearts can also hold them back when the timing is not aligned with His will. This is not cruelty, it is mercy. Sometimes the greatest act of love God can give is to pause what we desperately want so that He can protect what we cannot yet see. The pain of waiting, the frustration of silence, and the fear of losing control all become part of the divine purification that prepares you for something greater. Archangel Gabriel's role has always been to reveal the wisdom of heaven in moments of confusion. He is the messenger who interrupts human plans so that divine plans can unfold. Just as He appeared to Joseph in a dream, telling him not to abandon Mary when reason told him otherwise, He appears in your life to guide your choices when emotions threaten to mislead you. The dream given to Joseph was not only about preservation, it was about alignment. Heaven's voice through Gabriel redirected a man's will toward God's design. In the same way, when heaven stops you from chasing someone who has turned away, it is an act of redirection, not of denial, but of divine protection, steering your heart away from harm. There are times when you may try to push past this silence, to force communication, to find closure on your own terms, but the more you pursue, the heavier the resistance becomes. You feel unseen, yet God is watching. You feel ignored, yet Gabriel is near. The one you chase may not be your enemy, but perhaps they are not your destination. Sometimes the bond you are clinging to is still under construction in God's workshop, and if you rush the process, it collapses before it is complete. The delay, though painful, is not punishment, it is preservation. Heaven is preparing the heart of the one you love, or perhaps preparing your own heart to love differently, more purely, more freely. Gabriel's message to you in this silence is clear. Do not mistake stillness for abandonment. The same God who heard Mary's yes and Zechariah's doubts also hears the unspoken cries of your heart. He is not indifferent to your pain. He is working in the spaces you cannot see, softening hearts that pride has hardened, healing wounds that have made love impossible, and aligning circumstances so that what returns will be sanctified by His will. When heaven tells you to stop chasing, it is because the pursuit is moving faster than grace. Love, when it is true, does not need to be hunted down. It finds its way back in God's time. Let this be the moment you release the chase. Imagine Gabriel placing his hand upon your shoulder, stilling your restless heart and whispering, "Let go, rest." What is meant for you will not flee from you, and what is not meant to stay cannot be forced. In that release, peace begins to take the place of desperation. You begin to breathe again. The silence no longer feels like a wall, but a sacred waiting room where God is arranging something better than you imagined. The person you love may still be part of the story, or they may have only been the bridge to the one who truly is. Either way, heaven wastes nothing. There is power in surrender. When you stop chasing, you give God room to move. You hand the situation back to the one who understands every heart, every wound, every purpose, behind every pause. Gabriel's presence reminds you that divine love cannot be rushed, and divine timing cannot be replaced by human effort. The chase ends not in loss, but in liberation. You are not losing love. You are making space for the love that heaven has written for you, a love that will not require pursuit because it will walk beside you, guided by peace, blessed by light, and revealed when the silence is ready to speak, the messenger of clarity. In moments when silence surrounds your heart and confusion clouds your vision, the voice of Archangel Gabriel comes not to condemn your uncertainty, but to pierce through it with divine clarity. He is the messenger of revelation, the voice chosen by God to bridge heaven and earth, the bearer of announcements that change destinies. It was Gabriel who came to Mary with the impossible news that she would carry the Son of God. It was Gabriel who appeared to Zechariah when years of unanswered prayer had buried hope. His message has always been the same. What you thought was over is only beginning under God's hand. Gabriel's presence is not limited to sacred history. It is alive in every soul that seeks understanding in the midst of silence. His light cuts through the fog of uncertainty, showing that what appears like an ending may actually be preparation for restoration. When he speaks, confusion turns into revelation. He does not always reveal the full path, but he always reveals enough light for the next step. That is his gift, the divine whisper that steadies the trembling heart and reminds you that heaven has not forgotten your story. The clarity Gabriel brings is not the world's version of explanation. It is not a detailed answer to every question you have asked God. It is a holy insight that shifts your vision from fear to faith, from self-doubt to divine trust. Where the world demands closure, heaven offers understanding. Gabriel's clarity allows you to see beyond the surface of heartbreak into the hidden movement of grace. He reveals that sometimes love had to be broken so that pride could be healed, that silence had to stretch so that the heart could listen again, that absence was not abandonment but preparation for a deeper bond formed in God. Think of the moment when Gabriel appeared to Mary. He greeted her not with explanation, but with affirmation. "Hail, full of grace, the Lord is with you." Those words carry the essence of every message Gabriel brings. Before any change, before any restoration, God affirms his presence. The same is true for you. Before answers come, God reminds you that he is with you. Before reconciliation happens, he restores your confidence in his plan. Gabriel's first mission is not to reveal what the future holds, but to remind you that you are not walking toward it alone. In your own silence, this is how clarity begins. Not through reasoning, but through revelation. Not through overthinking, but through surrender. Gabriel teaches that clarity is not achieved, it is received. It comes when you stop demanding to understand and begin to trust the one who understands everything. The very moment you release the need to control the outcome, heaven speaks through the Archangel's gentle light, and what once seemed tangled begins to make sense. Perhaps clarity will come as peace rather than words. Perhaps it will arrive as a sudden calm when you stop replaying the past and start resting in God's promise. That peace is not imagination. It is the echo of Gabriel's voice, the same voice that calmed Mary's fears and reignited Zechariah's faith. Through that voice, God restores order to your thoughts and balance to your emotions. You begin to see that every delay, every distance, every silence has been part of a divine conversation, too deep for words. Gabriel's mission is not to erase the pain of your love story, but to illuminate its purpose. He reveals that restoration begins not with the return of the other person, but with the return of your soul to faith. When you understand that, the confusion that once tormented you begins to fade, and peace takes its place. Gabriel's light is now upon you. The message he carries from heaven is clear. God is not finished. Love is not lost. And what was hidden will soon be revealed. Hidden healing behind the distance. When someone you love drifts away, the silence that follows can feel unbearable. Every unanswered message, every day of distance feels like rejection, like the slow unraveling of something sacred. Yet what you cannot see is that this very space, the distance that now pains you, is often the workshop of heaven. God works quietly, invisibly, and most effectively when human hands can no longer interfere. Through the Archangel Gabriel, the divine messenger of restoration, heaven whispers a truth few dare to believe. The space that separates you may be the very ground where healing is being born. In the book of Daniel, chapter 9, verse 23, Gabriel appears with a message that begins with these words, "As soon as you began to pray, a word went out." Daniel did not see immediate change, yet heaven had already moved. The same is true for you. The moment you began to pray for clarity, for reconciliation, for peace, God already commanded his angels to begin their work. The distance you now feel is not abandonment, it is the silence of divine labor. God is working in the hearts of both souls, removing what must die so that what is holy can live again. Love, when touched by human pride, fear, or control, becomes distorted. It needs time apart to breathe, to be purified by grace. Gabriel's mission is to guard that process, ensuring that what God intends to heal is not destroyed by impatience. What you interpret as absence may, in fact, be God's sacred operation, the breaking of chains that bound both hearts to misunderstanding. Through distance, God restores sight. Through silence, he reorders priorities. Through waiting, he teaches both souls the language of humility, the posture of surrender, and the beauty of forgiveness. When heaven separates two hearts, it is never random. It is surgery, not punishment. Just as a wound must be closed before it can truly heal, God closes the door for a time so that both souls can mend before they are ready to stand face to face again. If you could see what heaven sees, you would not call this season a loss, you would call it preparation. Gabriel stands between you and the one you love, not as a wall but as a guardian, protecting what is being healed, shielding it from interference, and ensuring that when reunion comes, it is built upon truth, not need. This hidden healing does not only concern the other person, it also concerns you. Often the time apart exposes what within your own soul needs grace. The pain you feel reveals attachments that were mistaken for love, insecurities that need God's affirmation, and fears that must be surrendered before love can mature. Gabriel's light exposes these inner wounds with compassion, not condemnation. He shines truth where denial once lived, allowing you to face what needs transformation within. The more you resist this process, the longer healing takes. The more you surrender, the faster the heart becomes ready for what is divine. You may be tempted to fill the distance with noise, with overthinking, with self-blame, with imagining outcomes that only deepen your pain. But Gabriel's message invites you to do the opposite, to become still, to let heaven work unseen. In that stillness, God does what you cannot. He softens hearts, removes obstacles, and prepares the ground for a love purified by his presence. The person you miss may also be changing in this silence. The same God who heals your heart is working in theirs, even if you never see the process unfold. When distance feels endless, remember this truth. Absence is the stage where transformation begins. Just as Mary's yes to Gabriel set into motion a plan hidden for centuries, your trust in this moment allows heaven to complete a restoration you cannot yet understand. You are not waiting for love to return as it was. You are waiting for it to return as it should be, holy, whole, and healed. The distance that once felt like loss is becoming the bridge through which divine love will find its way back. The weight of unanswered prayers. There are moments when the silence of heaven feels heavier than the heartbreak itself. You kneel in prayer, you cry out with sincerity, you ask God for signs, for words, for a response, and still, nothing seems to move. The person you love remains distant, the wounds remain open, and you begin to wonder if your prayers have been lost somewhere between your tears and the stars. This weight of unanswered prayer can crush even the strongest soul, yet it is in this silence that the deepest mysteries of divine love are written. Archangel Gabriel stands as the messenger of God's timing, reminding you that heaven never ignores a single prayer. What you perceive as unanswered is often already unfolding beyond sight. In Daniel chapter 10 verse 12, Gabriel tells the prophet, From the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. Yet even Daniel, beloved of God, had to wait while unseen forces delayed the answer. The delay was not denial, it was battle. The same is true in your life. The silence between your prayer and its fulfillment is often the space where heaven fights for you. When prayers seem unanswered in matters of love, it is often because the heart you pray for is still under divine repair. God is healing what you cannot see, removing influences you would never detect, softening resistance that no human word could reach. If He were to answer immediately, the result would not last because the foundation beneath it would still be fragile. Unanswered prayers are often God's way of ensuring that what returns will remain. Gabriel teaches that unanswered prayers are not proof of distance, but signs of preparation. Each prayer you whisper becomes a brick in the unseen wall of restoration. The silence tests your faith, not to break it, but to deepen it. If love were granted instantly, you would never learn endurance. If clarity came too soon, you would never learn trust. God allows waiting because waiting transforms. The heart that learns to pray through silence becomes capable of loving with purity, not desperation. There are moments when the human heart interprets this waiting as rejection. If God truly cared, He would have answered by now. Yet Gabriel's very name, God is my strength, reminds you that strength is not found in swift answers, but in unwavering faith. The Archangel does not bring comfort by changing every circumstance at once. He brings revelation, helping you see that God's silence is filled with strategy. Heaven's timeline moves with precision. Every unanswered prayer is like an arrow that has not missed the mark but is still in flight. If your love life feels suspended in uncertainty, know this: God's answer is already on the way, but it must arrive at the moment when both hearts are ready to receive it. Until then, your prayer keeps the door open, your faith keeps the light burning, and your patience keeps you aligned with heaven's rhythm. The delay is not wasted time, it is sacred time. Each day you continue to pray despite the silence, you are not waiting passively. You are cooperating with God's plan. Gabriel walks with those who wait. He strengthens their faith when weariness grows, reminding them that prayers unreturned are not prayers unheard. The silence that feels endless is filled with divine motion, invisible yet unstoppable. The one who waits faithfully does not lose what they love. They find it again, restored by grace. So keep praying, keep believing. For the silence that once burdened you will soon break into revelation, and you will see that every unanswered prayer was never forgotten. It was being perfected, the divine mirror, understanding what God is revealing in you. When love falls silent and relationships unravel, the instinct is to look outward, to search for answers in the actions of others, to question why someone changed, or to wonder what went wrong. Yet Archangel Gabriel comes with a different message. Before you seek to understand the other heart, you must allow heaven to reveal what is being transformed within your own. Every separation, every silence, every unanswered prayer becomes a mirror through which God reflects the truths hidden deep inside you. The pain that rises to the surface is not punishment, it is revelation. It is the soul's invitation to see itself in the light of divine truth. Gabriel, the bearer of divine messages, never comes to flatter the human heart. He comes to awaken it. When he appeared to Mary, his words did not simply inform her of God's plan. They illuminated her identity. "Hail, full of grace, the Lord is with you." In that greeting, heaven revealed who she was before she even understood what she would do. The same happens to you in your seasons of silence. When God allows love to pause, He is not rejecting you. He is redefining you. He is teaching you to see yourself not through the eyes of another person, but through his own gaze of mercy and purpose. The mirror of divine revelation often shows uncomfortable truths. Perhaps you discover that your love was more rooted in fear than faith, more about being needed than being known. Perhaps you realize that you gave so much of yourself that there was nothing left to return. Gabriel's light exposes these places not to shame you, but to heal you. The love you seek cannot thrive while your identity depends on being chosen by another. God uses the silence of loss to restore your vision, to teach you that your worth is not defined by who stays or who leaves. When you stand before this divine mirror, you begin to see how God is reshaping your heart. The loneliness you feel is becoming space for peace. The longing that once consumed you is being purified into prayer. The ache of waiting is turning into wisdom. Heaven is not preparing you to love less, but to love rightly, with freedom, not fear, with discernment, not desperation. What was once a wound becomes a window through which divine light enters, and that light begins to heal everything it touches. Gabriel's mission is to reveal not only messages, but identities. He reminds you that love's restoration begins with clarity about who you are. You are not broken beyond repair. You are a vessel being refined. You are not unloved. You are being prepared to love in the image of the one who created love itself. The Archangel whispers into the silence, "Do not rush to fix what God is still healing within you. The reflection you see today is not the end, it is the beginning of who you are becoming." If you allow this revelation to reach you, your focus begins to shift. You stop asking why someone withdrew and start asking what God is building in you through this absence. You stop pleading for closure and start praying for transformation. You begin to see that perhaps the greatest gift of this season is not the return of another's affection, but the recovery of your own peace. The mirror no longer reflects the pain of loss, but the beauty of divine renewal. And when you are finally ready, when your soul has been purified by truth and steadied by faith, God will allow the next chapter to unfold. Whether it brings reconciliation or redirection, you will meet it not as someone searching for validation, but as someone already whole. Gabriel's message is not simply about restored relationships, it is about restored identity. For once you know who you are in God's light, no silence can diminish you, and no distance can define your worth. The moment heaven speaks. There is a moment in every story of waiting when heaven finally moves. It rarely comes with noise or drama, but when it comes, the soul recognizes it instantly. The silence that once felt unbearable shifts, and peace descends where anxiety once ruled. That is the moment when Archangel Gabriel steps forward again, not as a distant messenger of history, but as the living voice of divine timing. Just as he appeared to Mary at the appointed hour, his message arrives in your life precisely when both your heart and the heart meant for you are ready to receive what God has prepared. Heaven never speaks late, it speaks right on time. This moment does not always arrive through grand signs. Sometimes it comes through an unexpected calm, through a message that feels guided, through forgiveness you did not think was possible. It can arrive through a dream that brings peace, through an intuition that tells you to stop worrying, or through a sudden clarity that the confusion has served its purpose. The sign is unmistakable because it carries no fear, it carries light. And where that light enters, the heart knows that God has spoken. When Gabriel speaks, he restores divine order to the chaos of human emotion. His voice does not simply say, "It is time." It says, "Now you are ready." In that moment, what once seemed impossible becomes possible. Communication that was broken begins to flow again. Opportunities that seemed closed begin to open. The person who once felt unreachable begins to move closer, not always through words, but through spirit. Gabriel's message realigns paths, heals misunderstandings, and softens hearts so that love can meet truth under God's direction. Heaven's voice is gentle, yet unshakable. It does not confuse, it clarifies. It does not demand, it invites. You do not need to strain to hear it. It is not a thunderclap from the sky, but a whisper that cuts through noise. When Gabriel speaks, it feels like something deep within you awakens, not emotion, but recognition. The heart suddenly remembers that this was always God's plan, that the silence was never emptiness, but preparation for this exact moment. For some, heaven speaks by rekindling what was once lost, restoring contact, rebuilding trust, reuniting souls in peace. For others, heaven speaks by closing the past gently and guiding them toward new beginnings. In both cases, it is restoration. Because restoration is not about returning to what was before, but about bringing forth what is purified and ready for blessing. Gabriel's message ensures that whatever comes next is aligned with God's will, not human desire. Do not fear missing this moment. If your heart remains open, you will not mistake it. The same God who sent Gabriel to Mary when the world least expected a miracle will send the same clarity to you when your heart most needs direction. It will not be a moment of confusion, but of recognition. You will feel peace where you once felt pressure, and joy where you once felt fear. That is how heaven speaks, not through the noise of desperation, but through the stillness of certainty. When that voice reaches you, your heart will know what to do. Whether it calls you to reconcile or to release, you will move with confidence, because the guidance comes not from emotion, but from divine revelation. The silence will have served its purpose. The waiting will have become wisdom. And in that sacred moment, you will understand that Gabriel was never absent. He was preparing you to hear heaven's voice clearly. For when heaven speaks, love does not return as it was. It returns as it was always meant to be, whole, blessed, and written by God's hand. Signs that God is restoring your love. Life. When restoration begins, it rarely arrives in grand gestures or sudden transformations. It comes quietly, like dawn breaking after a long night. You begin to notice subtle changes, moments of peace that seem to appear without reason, memories that no longer wound, dreams that bring calm instead of sorrow. These are not coincidences. They are the first signs that heaven has begun to move. Archangel Gabriel, the messenger of divine revelation, sends these small yet unmistakable signals to let your heart know that God's work is already unfolding. One of the first signs is the return of inner peace. Where your spirit once trembled with confusion, you now feel a steady calm. The questions that used to consume your thoughts lose their power, replaced by a quiet certainty that God has not abandoned you. This peace does not depend on whether the other person has changed or reached out. It comes from heaven's assurance that restoration is in motion, even when the evidence is unseen. The soul feels it first, before the world reflects it. Another sign is forgiveness. You begin to feel the weight of resentment lifting. The anger that once kept you chained to the past weakens, not because you have forgotten what happened, but because you are no longer willing to carry it. Forgiveness is not always reconciliation. It is freedom, and where freedom enters, divine love begins to flow again. Archangel Gabriel often brings this grace silently, planting it in your heart until you realize one day that you can think of that person without pain. That is healing. That is restoration. Then come the signs in the world around you, doors that open unexpectedly, communication that resumes naturally, or even a divine redirection that brings new companionship filled with peace rather than anxiety. Restoration is not limited to one outcome. Sometimes God brings two hearts back together after refinement. Other times He brings a new love that carries the fruit of everything learned in the waiting. The constant in both is this: Peace follows where God restores. Pay attention to recurring symbols in prayer or dreams. Gabriel, as the angel of revelation, often uses dreams to deliver messages of reassurance. You might see light breaking through darkness, hear words of release, or simply wake with a sense of renewal. These are not random. They are heaven's language, guiding your spirit gently toward understanding. Another sign is gratitude returning where sorrow once lived. The more you thank God for what was, even for what hurt you, the more your heart opens to what is coming. Gratitude invites grace, and grace accelerates healing. You begin to realize that even the silence was sacred, that even the separation carried purpose. The heart that once cried in despair now prays with hope. And that transformation is the clearest proof that God is restoring your love life from the inside out. Restoration also manifests as discernment. Where confusion once reigned, clarity settles in. You stop chasing what is uncertain and start trusting what feels divinely aligned. This spiritual maturity is a sign of heaven's favor. It shows that your heart is now ready to love from wholeness, not from need. You may even notice that you attract peace where before you attracted chaos, that your energy no longer bends toward desperation, but radiates stability. That shift is not coincidence. It is evidence that Gabriel's light has done its work within you. The final sign is divine alignment, timing that feels orchestrated rather than planned. You encounter the right people, hear confirming words in unexpected places, and see synchronicities that remind you heaven is near. These moments are not luck. They are signatures of God's authorship on your story. When you recognize these signs, do not doubt them. Receive them with gratitude. They mean that the silence has accomplished its purpose, and that love, whether renewed or entirely new, is about to bloom under God's hand. For when heaven restores, it restores in fullness. And Gabriel's message to you now is simple. Your waiting was not wasted. God has already begun the work of renewal, and His plan will bring peace beyond what you lost. The prayer that breaks emotional confusion. There are times when the heart becomes so clouded by emotion that even prayer feels impossible. The silence of God feels like rejection, the waiting feels endless, and the soul begins to spiral between hope and despair. You replay memories, analyze words, search for meaning in every silence, and yet nothing seems to bring clarity. This is the storm of emotional confusion, where human understanding can no longer see the line between faith and fear. It is in this very storm that Archangel Gabriel descends as the messenger of divine order, carrying the light that restores calm to the restless soul. Gabriel's message to you in this moment is simple but profound. Peace comes when you stop trying to understand everything at once. When the human mind tries to solve what only heaven can explain, it creates chaos. When the soul surrenders the need for control, light enters. Prayer then is not about asking for explanations, but about inviting divine wisdom to dwell in your heart. True prayer does not demand to know why something happened. It asks for the strength to see what God is teaching through it. Imagine yourself now in that posture of surrender. You are not asking for outcomes. You are asking for alignment. You are not asking for a specific person. You are asking for the restoration of peace. You are not praying to escape pain. You are praying to find purpose within it. When you pray like this, the weight of confusion begins to lift, and the fog of uncertainty begins to clear. This is the kind of prayer Gabriel brings before the throne of God, the prayer of a heart that has stopped fighting and started trusting. The prayer that breaks emotional confusion begins with silence. In that stillness, speak to God not with desperation, but with faith. Say within your heart, Lord, if this silence is your will, then teach me to rest in it. If this waiting is your plan, then make it holy. If this distance is meant to heal, then let it heal me first. And when you speak, let me hear clearly, without fear. As these words rise, Gabriel stands beside you, translating the cries of your heart into the language of heaven, ensuring that even the words you cannot speak are heard. In Scripture, whenever Gabriel appears, confusion turns into understanding. To Zechariah, who doubted, to Mary, who questioned, to Daniel, who sought clarity, the archangel always brought peace where anxiety reigned. He did not change their circumstances immediately, but he changed their hearts. That is the miracle you are invited to receive tonight. The confusion you feel is not a punishment, it is the prelude to revelation. Once the mind releases its need to control the outcome, the spirit can finally move. As you pray, do not focus on the person or the situation. Focus on the divine light entering your emotions. Visualize that light softening the tension in your chest, calming your thoughts, and settling like warm peace in your spirit. Each breath becomes a prayer. Not my will, Lord, but yours. Each exhale releases the confusion that has weighed on your heart for too long. Gabriel's presence anchors you, reminding you that you are not lost, you are being guided toward truth. And when the prayer is finished, remain in silence. Do not rush to interpret what you feel. The clarity will not come as noise, but as peace. You may not receive all the answers tonight, but you will wake with a sense that something has shifted, that the storm has calmed, that heaven has heard. For the prayer that breaks confusion does not end with understanding. It ends with trust. And when trust takes root, confusion loses all power. Gabriel's promise to you is this: the same light that brought revelation to prophets and peace to the Virgin will enter your heart and bring order where there was chaos. Pray not for certainty, but for serenity. And you will see that God's silence was never abandonment. It was preparation for a revelation that will not only restore your love life, but also restore your soul. Reconciliation or redirection, both are restoration. When you ask God to restore your love life, you may already have an image of what that restoration should look like. You imagine the person returning, the communication resuming, the story continuing where it left off. Yet heaven's understanding of restoration is infinitely greater than our own. What you often call loss, heaven may call liberation. What you see as the end of a relationship, God may see as the beginning of your healing. This is the sacred paradox revealed through Archangel Gabriel. Sometimes restoration brings two hearts back together, and sometimes it releases them to walk different paths, both equally blessed by grace. Reconciliation and redirection are not opposites. They are two expressions of the same divine mercy. Reconciliation occurs when two souls, purified through separation, meet again, not as who they were, but as who God has formed them to be. Pride gives way to humility, fear gives way to honesty, and the love that returns bears no resemblance to what once was. It is calmer, stronger, rooted in truth rather than emotion. When this happens, it is a sign that heaven has completed its work. The same God who allowed distance has now permitted reunion because both hearts are finally ready to honor what He began. But redirection is no less sacred. When God chooses not to return what you lost, it is not because He ignored your prayer. It is because He answered it differently. Redirection is not rejection. It is divine rerouting. It means that heaven has heard your desire for love, but knows that your healing requires a new beginning. Gabriel's light often reveals this truth gently, showing you through signs, peace, and timing that what lies ahead holds more blessing than what lies behind. You may not see it yet, but every closed door protects you from heartbreak that could have deepened. Every unanswered message spares you from illusions that could have deceived. Redirection, too, is restoration. It restores your dignity, your freedom, your inner peace. When Gabriel brings messages from God, they are always anchored in clarity, never confusion. He does not speak to torment you with what-ifs, but to help you see that no path under heaven leads to emptiness when walked with faith. Whether your love story resumes or concludes, it fulfills its divine purpose, to transform you. For the goal of love in God's plan is not simply union, it is sanctification. The heart that learns to love selflessly, to forgive without conditions, to release without resentment, becomes a vessel of divine love itself. In that transformation, you become the very thing you were seeking. When reconciliation is meant for you, it will come easily. It will not require endless effort, endless pain, endless chasing. It will unfold naturally, like dawn after night. Peace will precede it, not anxiety. That is how you will know it is from God. And if it does not return, peace will still come, but in the form of release. That peace is just as divine, because it confirms that heaven has redirected you towards something greater. Gabriel stands between both paths, holding the same torch of clarity. He whispers, "Do not mourn what God has transformed. Every prayer you prayed for love has been answered, some through reunion, others through freedom. Both are healing, both are holy." If reconciliation happens, walk in humility and gratitude, knowing that grace restored what human effort could not. If redirection comes, walk forward with courage, for you are being led not away from love but deeper into it, the kind that first fills your own soul before it ever reaches another. Reconciliation may return what was lost, but redirection often reveals what was missing. Either way, your heart will no longer ache with uncertainty, because you will understand that God's hand was guiding you the entire time. Restoration does not always rebuild what was broken. Sometimes it builds something entirely new upon the ashes. And when that happens, you will finally see that both paths, whether you stay or move on, lead to the same destination: peace. Archangel Gabriel's final message for this moment is this: do not measure God's goodness by whether someone returns. Measure it by the peace He gives you to move forward. For when peace fills the place where confusion once lived, restoration has already begun. And in that peace your heart becomes ready, not just for love but for divine love, the kind that never ends and never leaves. The call to break the silence. There comes a sacred moment when heaven no longer asks you to wait quietly, but to rise and respond. The long silence that once served to heal has completed its work, and now God calls you to move, to act, to speak, not recklessly, but faithfully. This is the call to break the silence. Archangel Gabriel, who once broke heaven's centuries of silence to announce new beginnings, now brings the same invitation to your life. It is time to listen, to discern, and to respond with courage to the divine whisper that has been forming within your soul. Breaking the silence does not mean chasing after what left or forcing answers where none are ready. It means taking a step of obedience toward whatever truth God has revealed in your waiting. For some, it is the call to forgive someone who has hurt you, to set the heart free from the prison of resentment. For others, it is the prompting to reach out with humility, guided not by fear but by peace, to reopen communication where misunderstanding has long stood. And for many, it is the call to release entirely, to bless what has ended and walk forward into a new beginning prepared by heaven. Each act, though different, is born from the same divine courage. Gabriel's presence brings not impulsive motion, but divine prompting. He moves you at the right time, never too early, never too late. When God asks you to break the silence, the signal is unmistakable. Fear fades, and peace rises. You no longer feel driven by anxiety, but carried by purpose. The thought of acting no longer feels desperate. It feels sacred. That is how you will know that this moment is guided by heaven, not by emotion. For when the time comes, the Archangel will not simply send signs. He will stir something within you, a quiet conviction that says, "Now is the time." To break the silence is to participate in the miracle that God has already begun. It is to step out of passivity and into trust. Silence has its season, but so does action. God uses silence to heal the heart, but he uses action to manifest the promise. Both are holy, but one must follow the other. The heart that never acts after healing risks staying in spiritual stagnation, afraid of rejection or disappointment. But Gabriel reminds you that faith requires movement. Just as Mary said yes when Gabriel's message reached her, you too are invited to give heaven your consent, to act on what has been revealed even if you do not yet see the full picture. Breaking the silence may begin simply, a prayer spoken aloud for the first time without tears, a message sent in peace instead of fear, a word of forgiveness whispered for someone who will never hear it. These are not small acts, they are sacred doors. Each one opens a new channel for God's grace to flow. When you move in obedience, heaven multiplies your effort. The moment you take one step toward divine will, Gabriel moves 1,000 steps ahead to prepare what awaits you. Do not mistake stillness for safety. Remaining silent when God has asked you to speak can keep your heart trapped in yesterday's pain. Breaking the silence does not mean demanding results. It means trusting that obedience is enough. Gabriel's voice does not guarantee the outcome you desire. It guarantees peace in whatever follows. The act of obedience itself becomes healing because it proves that your faith has matured beyond fear. You are no longer waiting for signs. You have become one. Now is the time to break the silence, not through noise but through truth, not with haste but with harmony. Let Gabriel guide your words, your timing, your steps. Ask yourself, what has God been whispering to my heart that I have been too afraid to act upon? The answer you hear is the doorway to restoration. Step through it. For when heaven calls you to break the silence, it is never to bring chaos, but completion. It is the final act in a divine symphony that began in prayer and ends in peace. As you take this step, know that you are not walking alone. Gabriel walks before you, clearing the path, and behind you, protecting it. Your voice, once silenced by pain, now becomes an instrument of healing, not only for yourself, but for others who will one day find courage through your story. The silence has served its purpose. Now faith must speak. Prophetic closing and prayer for clarity. This is the moment when heaven seals the message that has been unfolding within your heart. Every silence, every tear, every unanswered prayer has led you here to a place of divine clarity. You are no longer standing in confusion, but in revelation. Archangel Gabriel, the messenger of truth, now stands beside you, not as a distant figure of scripture, but as a living witness of God's promise fulfilled in your life. His voice, which once announced to Mary that the impossible was possible, now speaks to your spirit. The time of silence has ended. The season of restoration has begun. Close your eyes for a moment and let those words sink deep into your soul. Feel how they shift the weight you have carried for so long. What once felt heavy now begins to feel holy. You are not the same person who began this journey of waiting. The silence that once wounded you has refined you. The pain that once seemed senseless has become the soil of revelation. You have not lost what mattered. You have been prepared for what endures. Heaven has not forgotten your name. Your prayers have been engraved upon the heart of God. Tonight you stand in the light of Gabriel's presence, surrounded by the same divine power that spoke the word into the womb of Mary. That word now speaks to your life. Where confusion once reigned, peace takes its place. Where heartbreak once ruled, understanding blooms. This is not just emotional recovery, it is divine alignment. What is meant for you will come in peace. What is not meant for you will leave without bitterness. For the heart that listens to heaven's guidance no longer fears loss, because it knows that nothing surrendered to God is ever truly gone. Now, let this prayer rise from your soul. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the silence that taught me to listen, for the waiting that built my faith, and for the pain that opened my heart to your light. Through the intercession of Saint Gabriel, I surrender every confusion, every unanswered question, every desire for control. Teach me to see as you see, to love as you love, to trust as you guide. Remove from me the fear that binds, and fill me with the peace that frees. Let every bond that was formed outside your will be gently released, and every bond born of your spirit be restored in truth and light. Let my heart no longer chase what you have already delivered me from. I receive your will not with resistance but with reverence. May clarity replace confusion and faith replace fear. Saint Gabriel, messenger of divine revelation, speak to my soul as you spoke to Mary and Zechariah. Announce to my spirit that my time of sorrow has passed. Reveal to me the truth that will lead me into healing. If reconciliation is God's will, prepare both hearts in holiness. If redirection is His plan, let me walk forward with courage. Guard me from deception, protect me from despair, and guide me toward the love that reflects heaven's purity. I trust in the word that you carry, the word that never fails, the word that restores all things. Lord Jesus, you who are love incarnate, bless my heart with discernment. Let my emotions serve faith, not fear. Let my relationships mirror your truth, not my wounds. Through your light, let me see that what is restored by your hand can never be taken by the world. And as I sleep tonight, let your peace surround me. Let the same spirit that filled Mary fill me now, with courage to believe, with strength to wait, and with clarity to walk the path you have chosen. Now rest in this truth. Heaven has spoken. What was once hidden has been revealed. What was once confused is now clear. God is restoring your love life, not merely to return what was lost, but to bring forth what is divine. Whether through reconciliation or through renewal, peace will reign, and you will recognize that every silence was a preparation for this revelation. Archangel Gabriel's final word to your heart tonight is this: the silence that once broke you has become the silence that built you. You are ready. What is meant for you will come in light, not in confusion. Walk forward. Heaven has already gone before you.